Hi all, this is Joe Ganchi, president of eLearning Joe LLC. As I've said before, I've been creating e-learning since 1983, which is a long time, and I've used a lot of tools in that time. Right now, I'm going to be presenting the features that I love about Captivate that are not in Storyline. I, prior to this, created a different video called The Features I Love About Storyline That Are Missing from Captivate, in which I covered these 13 different points. Now I'm going to be talking about, well, there's quite a few more than 13 here. So rather than go through them all one by one, listing them, you can see this for yourself on the LinkedIn page right here at the top. But meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and just show you, I'm going to work through this and show you some of the features in Captivate that I really like. So we're going to start with the library. And most of these are going to go pretty quick, but some of them may take a little more explanation. Now, library is pretty powerful. Now, here's an example of a file that I created a while ago, and it won an award from me and for the team I worked with as far as the best alternative solution to e-learning. And in essence, it was a really nice award to get a couple of years ago. So the first feature I'm going to talk about is the library that is in fact part of every Captivate file that you create. Library is automatically created for you. And in this area here, which is the library area, you can see that all of the images, the videos, the PowerPoint files, any Photoshop files, along with any audio files, just about everything has been brought in to my file is also found in the library. You can see, for example, what this might be right here. It shows you the size of this image. It shows you how many times it's used. Some of these, for instance, this here is being used 80 times in my file. This one's 22 times. This one's 27 times, etc. And of course, if I take this out, you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to bring this out. You can see the use count, as I was just showing you, the size, and then also you can see the status and the date modified for each of these as well. So you have lots of information here regarding the images, the animations, the PowerPoint, everything you brought into your file is listed here in the library for you. Now, to show you really the efficiency of the library, I'm going to create a new file. Now, one of the things that I will mention a little bit later is that you can have as many open files in Captivate at the same time as you wish. And we'll address that a little bit later. But for now, I'm going to create a new file. And this one will be a blank one. So I'm going to create a new project and then blank project. I choose my size, I click OK, and then it creates my file for me. Okay, so now we're going to have our new blank file here, and you can see that the Flu Savvy one is still open over there. In fact, I can have as many open files as I wish. Okay, as far as the library is concerned, let me show you a couple of things that I think are kind of neat. If I take, for instance, and bring in an image, and I'll just choose any image here. Let's go to my desktop folder here and just choose one of these images here. Okay, this is as good as any. Now, if the image on the screen is exactly like I want, great, I'll just leave it alone. Notice over here in the library that it has been listed here as well. Now, if I were to take another and create another slide here and then wanted to copy this one to the slide, then all I'm doing at this point is seeing that in the library I'm listing it there twice now. Okay, great. Now, what would happen if I came over here and shrunk it down, put it up there, this one stays as is, and now I'm going to duplicate this slide and I'm going to make this one maybe grayscale. So I'll edit the image quickly, turn it to grayscale, and rotate it, and so on. Okay, so I'm doing various different things here to these images, but of course the image itself is only being stored in my file once right here. It's being used 3 separate times. Okay, so having said that, if I copy this instance of the image to this other slide, of course it retains all the attributes that I apply to it. You know, it's rotated, it's grayscale, etc. Now, the library is cool because one of the things I can do here now is to come directly to the image there and import a different image or update it. Now, updating is cool because if you're working with an artist and that artist is giving you files and they're always in the same place and all the updates have the same name, they're just updated files, then all you have to do is update and it automatically will find the updated file, etc. Or you can import and bring in a different image altogether. So if I were to, again, go to my pictures folder and go to desktop and choose a different image here, let's try Pizza here, you'll see that now it has changed every instance of that in my file because I changed it over here in the library, so the image itself that's stored in my file is now changed. But notice that the attributes that I applied to each one are still there. That's a very cool option there too. So what if you're working in a really large file like this one here, and you get to a point where you're looking at an image perhaps, and you say to yourself, well, gee, I'd like to update this file, this image. I could go ahead and just delete it and bring in another one, but no. If this is being used elsewhere, maybe I want to update it in both places, right? So what I can do now is to say, wow, where is it in this big library? Well, if I just right-click on it, I can choose Find in the Library, and there it is, right there. In fact, it's being used 3 separate times in my file, and so if I wanted to change it here, I could, and then everywhere it's being used, it would update. Of course, on the other hand, if I just want to change it in one place, I just have to delete it, this instance here, bring in a different image altogether. So it's up to me, and the ability to update an image file, for instance, and have it applied everywhere is a real time saver, especially when you're looking at updated logos and other kinds of images that businesses tend to update every once in a while as well. Okay, so library is a great area to go if you're looking for anything that you have brought into your file and now you're trying to reuse it in some way. If you want to update it, you want to import a different file altogether, etc., all really good. All right, some of the other options up here are very good too, like Open Library. Now, Open Library lets you, in fact, point to any Captivate file that you may already have available. I'll just choose this one here. And within this file is a library, of course, because every file gets its own automatic library. By doing this, I'm now going to see only the library portion of that file, meaning I'm not going to be changing that file in any way. I'm just simply borrowing from it. So here's some videos, for instance, and if I decided I want these videos over here in my library, guess what? So easy, because all I have to do is then, and I'll put them in the video folder just because I'm a little anal retentive about it. I can choose these images, these videos, bring them over here, and now they're automatically added to my file. Notice, of course, they have 0 use counts for the moment because I'm not using them yet. So that's really nice. The other thing you can do is if you have, for instance, and by the way, you can have as many libraries from other files open as you want, but once you've copied stuff out of them into your file, and again, you're not changing those other files in any way, you might as well just dismiss them because, after all, they've served their purpose. If I am, in fact, going to be looking at images that I want to bring in, for instance, or videos or anything else for that matter, if I were to open up File Manager in Windows or Finder on the Mac, I could just bring in the images directly. And you can do the same thing in Storyline, right? You can just put them on the stage. But I have a choice here, which is that I can, in fact, not only bring them onto the stage, but if I wish, I can also drag them directly onto into my library, because I tend to use these later, but I'm not ready to use them immediately. So again, that's another way to add images or any other resources to your library. Fantastic way of making sure you're ready so that when the time comes that you need those images, you don't have to go hunting for them. You already have prepared them for yourself ahead of time. So this idea of open library, this idea of importing, this idea of exporting as well is cool, because if, for instance, you no longer can find an image or an audio file or something else that you may have included in your file, and now that external file for some reason has gone missing, you can always come over here and choose as many different images and audio, whatever you like, and say I want to export them. And so when you do that, export, it will then allow you to place it where you want. And in case of images, you can save them out as BMPs, JPEGs, GIF, or PNG files. For audio, of course, you can save them out as WAV files or as MP3s. So very cool features here for the library. And the library is in fact something that I tend to have open all the time. Over here on the right, I don't tend to close it much because it is so damn useful. Okay, the next topic, the next feature I want to talk about is having the properties window here open all the time. And the reason for that is that it will automatically update to show the properties for whatever you happen to click. So if I click on here, for instance, I'm going to see caption or text type of properties. I have all sorts of abilities here. For instance, I can say I want to add effects to them. I can create my own effects as well. So I can create and name an effect for text using any of these combinations of features, which are incredibly powerful when you combine them, and then be able to have that available to me here as well. So that you can of course do all of the standard things like change it to subscript or superscript. You can take portions of this and color it or change the font and again make part of it superscript or subscript. You can also insert variables in here, insert hyperlinks that are of course interactive into my into the text as well. All of this is text properties, in other words, right? Now if I click over here on this image, this instantly changes to show me image properties. If I click on a part of the screen that doesn't have content on it, or I click on this slide directly, I will see the slide properties. In other words, those things that pertain to the slide as a whole. And this is all how it works. So if I click on an image, I click on this, here's a click box, and of course now I'm going to be looking at the properties for a click box, and those are right here too. So having these properties already open all the time is such a time saver. I don't have to open and close dialogues. I don't have to right click on anything and say show me the properties for that. Nope, I can just immediately see them over here and make any changes that I wish. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, you can have as many files open as you wish here. I've done some tests and have seen that in fact if you wanted to have Captivate open several different times, in other words, you launch the application and you load one file into it, then you launch it again and load another file to it, and then you launch it a third time, a fourth time, well, that eats up memory in no time. You can't possibly have so many copies of Captivate open at the same time if you're trying to work in several different files at the same time. Well, in this case, there's absolutely no need because, again, I can have as many files open here as I wish. There's 2 of them open right now. If I wanted to, I can go ahead and just choose from any other file that I've created, including my What I Like About Storyline 2 file that I did earlier. Bring in this file here, which is a responsive one, I believe, and also be able to continue to work in the others. I can copy and paste between them, etc., without having to Alt-Tab out to a different copy of the application. It is all self-contained right here in one copy of my application that's running. That is, as far as I'm concerned, much more productive and much more efficient than trying to open multiple copies of the application just so you can copy and paste between different files. In addition to that, the fact is that there's only one reason I would ever open Captivate twice, and that is if I was trying to do a software simulation to show how Captivate works. If I'm doing an exercise on Captivate and I want to grab a software simulation or a video demo of it, well, that's exactly, the reason why I might open a second copy of Captivate, but that's the only reason I would ever do that. So, very cool feature, and it's been around since version 5, I believe, or 5.5. It's been around for a long time, and it's one of the things I love about Captivate. Okay, let's talk about responsive then, which for some reason others are taking a little too lightly, I think. It's not a question of oh, we don't really need it. It's a question of making sure the learner gets what they need. So here's the thing. If I were to open up a non-responsive file in Captivate, such as this one here, for instance, and then I were to publish it out as a standard HTML file, nothing responsive about it, just simply being published as a HTML5, I would get something very similar to what you get in Storyline, which is I would get a file like this one here, an output I should say like this one here, where if I were to expand it or squeeze it down, you'll start to see that there's blank area on top and bottom, and the more I squeeze it, the more empty space I'll get. And so if I were looking at this on a cell phone, it might look something like this, just as I saw with the storyline files. If I look at it on a tablet, it might be better. But no, I'm sorry, that's just a waste of space. Why would you rob the learner of all of this extra room? And that's where responsive comes in. So I'm going to move that aside, and I'm going to then show how something like this could work for responsive, and maybe then it'll become clear as to what we're talking about here. So I'll open up this file here. Oops, not that one. I will open up a recent one, this one here, which is one I've taught as a session a couple of times, different kinds of mobile tips. And look, and in here I explain that there's so much power, so much different ways you can do things. And so, for instance, if I were to take an image like this one here, where the image is pretty aesthetic, it's not it's not an image of a street scene or of a person. It's more of an image that if I were to try to distort it, it would still look okay. So in fact, I could look at it in different views, the custom tablet view and the tablet portrait view, and each time these are each time it looks fine. But then you get other kinds of images like this one here, which is of course a scene from Venice. And in this case, sure, in the desktop view, it can take up the full view, but then if I go to the tablet view here, the landscape view, I'm simply going to automatically crop it in the middle here. So now for the tablet portrait, it's going to look like this part here. It's going to be cut off right there, and if I want to, I can also show the lines on the screen if I wish. In fact, let me go ahead and do that now so that you can also see that. So there you see the lines right there where it shows you exactly what's going to be showing. And if I go to the custom mobile view, which would be now my landscape phone view, you can see what I've done here is to shift it over to show this part, and finally for the mobile portrait view, it's going to show this part here, which is cool. Okay, same thing with this image here, except that in this case it's always the middle of the image, so it makes it a little bit easier because it's pretty much the middle where the action is happening. Alright, so having said all that, if I start to work with other elements and images like this one here, well, it's cool that I can do something like this. I can take this is the breakpoint version, of course. These are called breakpoints. If I take an image like this one here, if I were to place this at the top left corner here of the screen, you can see that by default, by the way, if I brought in a new image, it would be tied to the left and also tied to the top here. And I can also change that right here as well. So change it at the top, it would be tied to the top and to the left. But because of aspect ratios change depending on the different sizes of the devices that you're on, it looks okay in these cases here. It's automatically changing those percentage-wise. It's changing the size and the position. But if I were to place it near the bottom here, then it automatically cascades down, but then I start to see it's going to creep up on me. So that in fact it's not going to look that good in these cases. But it's easy to fix this sort of thing because all I have to do then is, as it was before, change it to be anchored at the bottom instead of at the top, like so, and also on the right instead of at the left, and now it will look in the proper place each and every time. As I look at these other views, it's going to be fine. It might be a little off screen because I moved it, but there it goes. Now it's going to be back and be exactly where it should be. You can even have these things be relative to each other. So if I wanted to, I could have, for instance, here, these two images. This one is attached to that one, so that if I were to move it, it's just like grouping them in a sense, but not really, because this one here is what's giving it the guidance. So this one is always going to be moving along with this one, but if I move this one here, it's simply changing it in its position relative to the other image. That's relative positioning, and that's a really cool feature too. You have all sorts of options here to really finesse this down so that in the end you're going to get exactly what you want in every view. If I were to preview this right now, you can kind of see what these images look like. It's not a real course, but I have plenty of those I could show, but really time is of the essence here. And what you're going to see then is that there's going to be a slider that I can use. And that slider will allow me to change the resolution of what I'm seeing here. Let me move it over to this slide, to the screen here. And so here I am, and I'm showing exactly the pixels up here, so I can change them. Let me pause this. I can change and see exactly what the output will be. And I can also use the slider to change it along the way, so I can see exactly what it's going to look like. You can see there's no room wasted here. For every different version of this, every different viewport, it's going to be filling up the screen exactly the way it should, exactly the way websites do. You'd be hard-pressed to get a website nowadays, especially a commercial one, where when you look at it on a cell phone, you're going to get black at the top and the bottom. No, it really needs to look right on mobile devices as well, and no, there should be no difference for e-learning. It should look good in every case. Okay, so let me move that aside and move over to the alternative now for instructional, for responsive design, which is to use what are called fluid boxes. Fluid boxes are at first a little bit, takes a little bit of time to figure them out, but then after a bit, it's like, wow, how did I get along without these until now? So this is an example of one here where I have set up the screen in such a way that, and I can now use this to see exactly what will change as I decrease the size, so that I can see what it's going to look like in every view. I can also drop this down and choose one of these options here, as I believe you can in Storyline, sort of, more or less. And you can also create your own and add them to the list here. So I can always add another custom view to this list, and then it will be listed here as well. So in this case, for instance, if I were to look at this view right here, where the learner is going to choose the assistant that they want, then what they're going to see is, they won't see these lines, by the way. In fact, if I were to preview this, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You're going to see that it all looks good no matter what the resolution is. It's like breakpoints, but in a whole different way. And this is why a lot of new websites now are being done this way as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the output. I'll swing the browser window over to here. And notice that the window here, I can also change it here and see exactly what the learner will see. So at a certain point, wow, it suddenly changed to 3 and 3, and then if I move it even further, it's going to change to 3 rows of 2. This is very similar to what you might see on the Microsoft site, where they have a similar idea, where they have boxes that are here along the way, and they start to decrease in size, but at a certain point they become large again, but are stacked differently, and that's where it's a very cool option to be able to do that. But again, no space wasted. This is what the mobile phone looks like in portrait mode. Perhaps in the tablet view, it might look something like this, and then over here as well. Of course, I can test it exactly what it's going to look like in every case, but this is a really cool feature that is done through what are called fluid boxes that you can create horizontally and vertically on the screen. And in each case here, you'll see that I have created this using the fluid boxes. Once you get the hang of it, it's very, very cool. Okay, so let's talk now about scalable vector graphics. Scalable vector graphics are images that you kind of create in tools like Adobe Premiere. They are not pixel-based, they are mathematically defined. And the reason why they're cool is that, I'll bring in one here, bring in an SVG file. The reason why these are cool is because they scale so very well. As such, if I take one of these, for instance, let's go with the car, I guess. If I bring in this car SVG, now if there it is right there, and it's usually a drawing of some kind because it's being mathematically computed. So the nice thing about these is that if I were to bring this down to a size I wish, for instance, you'll see if you look very carefully that it's going to snap to a high quality version almost immediately. And it's even easier to see that, of course, if I make this really big. So as I do that, notice it looks kind of not so cool for a couple of seconds, and then bam, it's already perfect again. That's the beauty of SVG files. And so when you bring in an SVG file, you are able to size it to the size you need with no problems. In addition to that, these tend to be really small files compared to what you might see with a a pixel-based image, so they're much easier to look at on cell phones and other things as well. Some of them, by the way, can also be in running, so as animation. So this one here is a clock one, where again it looks like it's it'll resolve itself in a second here. It looks like it's a really just a clock. But if I were to look at this in, you can see already it is in fact running. And I can look at this in preview mode and see it running as well. So you can see it's already running by itself right there. As soon as I put my cursor over it, it's running. When I move away, it stops. But if I were to show this in a preview or publish mode, you would see it's running all the time. Now, having said that, again, look at this now. If I were to increase the size of this tremendously, you'll see it looks kind of bad until, bam, it becomes beautiful again. Especially noticeable up here in this text here. That's why SVG is so powerful, is because it does really work well for scaling. Okay, so one of the newer features in Captivate is Typekit integration. So if I do create a text caption, or I bring on a smart shape that I can place text inside of it, of course, as well. Change the properties for that again to maybe I'll do let's just do white, and then I start typing in there. White text on white text, that's fantastic. But of course I can change that right here, so let me do that. What you can do is to have different effects, as I mentioned earlier here, or if I want to, I can also have access to Typekit. And Typekit is this little option right here that will bring up a website where I can download many times for free fonts that are available through Adobe, and there are others that you can purchase as well, but there's a lot of free ones up there. And guess what this means? This means that you don't always have to work with only web safe fonts anymore, because you can see it says in your plan, those are many of these are in my plan, because these are incorporated into the file directly, and so you don't have to worry about this looking different on other people's machines. These fonts become part and parcel of your project, and your learners will see exactly what you intend them to see. So again, not an issue for having to stick with only web safe fonts. Really nice feature there too. I mentioned already the fact that you can publish to MP4. Oh, actually I didn't. I was talking about publishing to HTML5. Well, yes, I can also publish to MP4. So when I go to publish here, I have lots of choices, and one of them is, in fact, to publish to a standard, video file, which of course is not going to be interactive, but that's part of one of the things you can do here. So if I turn these off, then I can just drop this down. And in fact, one thing I should mention is it's not just video files, but also executable files. Let's go look at the video one first. This will create an MP4 file, and you have lots of options here for how it should look, but in the end, what you're going to get is a video. And that's great if you have a very linear thing that you want to show, like in a kiosk or as a demo. That's great. The other one that I should mention is executable, which allows you to create exe files or Mac executable files from the Windows machine, which is what I'm on right now, or if you can, because this is also native to the Mac, you can create an exe or a Mac executable from the Mac version as well. Not that we do that much with these kinds of executables anymore. Most of our stuff is going online, but it's a nice feature just in case. Okay, so yes, I went to show that you can export or publish to MP4 as well. All right, system variables are fantastic, because system variables, what they allow you to do is to incorporate lots and lots of stuff that is coming directly from the system. So if I were to open up that, let's see, let me open that up again. If I were to open up that hotel one version earlier, you may have noticed that at the bottom of the screen was running the time of day. And the time of day is just one of those system variables, CP info current time, which you can incorporate into any area where you have text. So if I wanted to, I could have almost anything that is generated from the system on here. So okay, so let me just show that. If I were to go into a text caption and say I want to insert a variable, then the variables, the system variables available to me, besides all the user ones I can create myself, but the system ones, there's quite a few of them, and I can categorize them by movie information, movie metadata, system information, quizzing variables, or mobile. And if I look at this list, all, this is all of the ones that are available to me. And here I have a bunch of time ones, date and time as well. If I change this to be the system information, that's pretty much all the date and time ones, along with one that's mobile OS, which is a really cool one, because what it does is it will show you the the type of device you're running on too. So if I look at CP Mobile OS, and I'll just jump down to it here, CP Info Mobile OS, you can see that the desktop version will return a 0. It'll be a 0. iOS is 1, Android is 2, and then the other ones will actually be the name of the device. So very cool feature there too, and that helps you to customize further, depending on that. Not something you have to do too often, but it's nice. So again, you can incorporate any of these system variables that you wish, and some of them are that I use all the time, besides the date and time, for instance, is looking at the information about the CP, the Captivate current slide type, the current slide title, etc., the label for it, because that means that whatever I decide to label here, for instance, this one is called Introduction, I could show that directly on the screen. So let me try that right now. I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I were to try to do CP Info Current Slide Label, that will then be placed right there. And this is something normally I would place at the top, for instance, in its own as a title to the slide. But okay, let me just bring it in here. So if I were to preview this right now, I would see, in essence, the word title there, because that's the name of my slide. And let's just check it out and make sure it's working fine. It should be working great. And there it is, title. Of course, I would put that at the top of my screen. So let's say that we did want to do that. Let's say that we wanted to put it at the top of the screen. Well, we have a couple of ways of doing that. Of course, there's the master slides, and so I could put it on the master slide and then on one of the master slides and then whatever, or all of them. And that way, wherever I'm using those, it will always show. Just as I did with Info Current Time over here, you can see this is on the master slide. It's always going to show. Depending, in this case, it's always going to show because it's on the master. But another thing you can do here, which is kind of cool, is if I don't want that title to appear until, for instance, this slide here, even though they might be using the same master slide, what I could go ahead and do then is to use create a new smart shape or text caption here, place that variable inside of it, and now that, and then say that for the timing of that, I want to change it to rest of project. And then I can decide whether I want other slides to be able to place things on top of this one or have this one always be on top. So that's another option for always being able to see the label or anything else that you may want to place on a slide that you want to then subsequently show on all of the slides. So that's a really cool feature too. Okay. So audio in Captivate can be brought in several different ways. In fact, I can have audio be part of my background, which means it's going to be playing all the time, and it can loop as well. That's cool, but not something you do real often. Certainly, I don't normally have background music in my files, but it sometimes helps to have background sounds that mimic the environment that we're trying to teach in. So for ambient sound, for hospital sounds, or office sounds, or construction site sounds, but muted and in the background can kind of give you that feel of being there. So that's a nice feature to have, is to have background audio playing. But the nice thing about background audio also is that once you've chosen what audio file to have, and I'll just choose any old one here, you'll see that down here you can automatically adjust the background audio volume down when other audio is playing. So you can have that background ambient sound, for instance, go way down automatically, and that's a really cool feature. And then it comes back up when the other sounds are stopped. Okay, background. And then of course you can also bring in slide audio, which you can access here, which is narration type of audio. You can also bring it up here as well. And then you can also bring in object audio, so that when an object appears, in fact any kind of object in Captivate, if I right click on it, allows me to add audio to it, and I can import or record to it, and I can do that here, or I can do it up here, and there's a couple of other places I can also do that. Okay, very cool. I can also distribute audio over several slides, and so you can kind of see it here under record to, because I can say I want to record audio and distribute it over several slides, or I can even import audio over several slides as well. It will automatically ask me if I want to do that if I bring in a file that's longer than the current timeline that's available to me in the current slide. Okay, that's cool. Let's talk then about text-to-speech or speech management, because speech management is one of those very cool options that are available to you. And if you think of this as only something that you might do for accessibility purposes, you're wrong, because one of the areas in which I find this really useful is, rather than hire a narrator right away in a file that I'm creating to do the narration, I will use text-to-speech instead. So if I'm going to click on title here, and I'm going to add a new item here and just say, hello and welcome, I am here to assist you. Okay, and then I have choices here, of course. These are the different voices that are available to me. We have some American sounding ones, some British sounding ones, one that speaks French fluently. So if you use French text, it will say it correctly. Yumi is Korean, so if you have Korean text in there, it will say it fluently as well. Kate and Paul are pretty American sounding. Julie and James are a bit more British sounding. So if I choose Kate, for instance, and I go ahead and say I want to generate the audio, well, it's not going to generate the audio for that all of the slides that have audio attached, or sorry, have text-to-speech attached to it. And now I can see that there's a little speaker symbol there, because anytime you bring in audio to a slide, you'll see the speaker symbol right there. If you bring in audio to an object, it will appear on the object's timeline area. So cool option there. Okay, so if I were to listen to this now, let's hear what it sounds like.
Hello and welcome. I am here to assist you.
Okay, so doesn't sound perfect, of course, but this is the deal. I use this instead of a professional narrator because, or even my own voice, because it's so easy to update these all the time that when when the customer, in my case, comes back and wants changes made, which they always want to do, because seeing something written in a script is not the same as hearing it said out loud. Even a text-to-speech voice will alert you to what could be the case in case of word changes that are needed. It's a great way to go. So in this case, I could always come back here and add more or change this and so on. I can do a lot of different work here as well. Each slide in my file can have slide notes, and that allows me to also create text only once that's going to be used both for text-to-speech and for closed captions in my audio or in my video. And so that's a really good time saver as well. Okay. When I am working in a file like this, one of the areas that is good, and you can do this in Storyline as well, but you can export your project captions and closed captions as well. The reason why I like Captivate's better in terms of how it is formatted is because you don't just simply replace the text that's there. You still see the original text. In other words, it's a lot easier to work with because you have two different columns with identical text, and in each case you're going to change the text on the right column, but the left column will still be there so that you can keep track of what is it that you're writing, because you can lose track if you're just typing over it, or it gets kind of messy if you are trying to squeeze it in there and then delete the original one later. All in all, though, I probably should have chosen a bit of a smaller file, but this shouldn't take too much longer. All in all, though, I just find it easier to edit these kinds of formatted documents. And so in a moment, you're going to see what it looks like. And then this is the kind of file, of course, that you can give to your SMEs or to your narrators or whoever else needs to be able to see the text in the file, along with those who might need to translate it and so on. So let's say yes, I want to view the document, and it'll open it up, and I'll be able to see now that in fact these two columns are exactly the same. If I look at it with the grid lines, I can then let's see, right over here is it, view the grid lines, I can see the table, how it's set up, and it says this is the original, this is the updated one. So, and all of the formatting is still there. In fact, if I change the formatting in here, it will update inside the file too, which is kind of cool. I don't know if that's possible in Storyline. It probably is. Okay, so having said that, this is the column that will have the updated text in it, and so I never lose track of what it is that I'm translating or changing, because I can always have the original there as well, and that's a really nice feature too. Okay, that's another one. Let's say then that the text-to-speech is a useful way for my clients, and they all seem to appreciate it, my clients to be able to hear scripts and make changes to it and have it rapidly updated without any real issue. All right, let's go on to talk about advanced actions then, because advanced actions in Captivate are very different from triggers and actions in Storyline, because triggers and actions in Storyline, as nice as they are, just don't give you that kind of ability to do as much powerful things as you can do in Captivate. Now, I can look at the advanced actions on every slide and look for those, but in fact I can just go to one place and see all of the advanced actions in my file. And so here, for instance, I can see clicked adult, clicked allergy, clicked etc. And over here I'm going to see that these here are conditional actions. I can mix and match conditionals and standard actions, but here it's asking, are all of these set ones and zeros? If show, then show this cap perfect no, which is an object on the screen that's hidden. So all of these here are in fact going to be very useful in terms of being able to create the kinds of things we did. Now, I created this in an early version of Captivate where in fact we couldn't have standard and conditional in the same one, but guess what? This is the sort of way we got around it back then. If 1 is equal to 1, then do this. Well, that's unconditional. I don't need to do that anymore. I can just turn that off. And in fact, this is now a standard action that will always play. You don't have to set up a silly condition like is 1 equal to 1 anymore. And the same is true for any other situations like that. I can also come up here and click on this and see the whole script for this advanced action right now in one, and that way I can also more easily check to see if everything looks correct or not. Really nice feature there too. If I jump to a different one, let's say enable clicks here, this one is not going to be a conditional one. So again, I can come up here and just see that these are all listed here as well. Oh, advanced actions are pretty cool. I can also save actions as shared actions, which allow me then to, in essence, create black boxes that I can save and give to people, and they can bring it into their files, and it'll work for them as well, just by them providing parameters as to the kinds of things that matter in their files. In other words, if I come over here and choose something like a final score, when I choose this option here, these are expressions and so on that are happening. And again, this doesn't have to happen anymore, but if I do something here where I might want to change the feedback, I could set this to be a parameter so that the other files, the developers of the other files, or my own files if I'm doing this later, can be changed easily. So shared actions are a really great feature that allow me to share any advanced actions I create. All right, so let's move on then. Oh, you know what? I meant to show you this. Besides having the ability to have these conditionals and, of course, having the standard actions, I can also now have a while loop happening. So I can check for a condition and just keep going in a loop here. Very nice feature, which I'm only now starting to really use a lot more. To allow me to have something happening on the screen, or allowing me to continually trying something until another condition holds true. Really great new feature in Captivate 2017. Okay, let's keep going. When I am working in a file, let's go to this one here and get rid of that. One of the nice things I can do is to import Photoshop files. So when I go to import here and I choose a Photoshop file, Let me just open up one I have, I believe, here in my desktop in images folder. So this one here has, if I would open that up in Photoshop, you would see exactly this. And in fact, you would see these are the different layers in Photoshop. If I were to choose these other ones, in other words, when this was saved in Photoshop, those were not checked. I can choose now to check them if I wish. So I just did, and when I click OK, this is exactly how the images are laid out in Photoshop. And so if the artist has already done the work for me by laying out the images in the correct way, when I bring them into Captivate, bam, it's done. I don't have to do anything here. On the other hand, if I wanted to work with these individually, I can. They're all separate layers in Captivate. So if I wanted to move this guy aside, no problem. If I wanted to make this one bigger, no problem. But realistically, I don't normally have to because all the work is done already for me. In my library, these Photoshop files are their own categories as well, so that if I wanted to change something here and I double click, I can go ahead and edit it directly in Photoshop if I wish, and as soon as I make a change there, it will update here as well. In fact, the whole round tripping of items in Captivate is very powerful. So if I come back to, let's try, yeah, we'll do that one there. Anything I click on here, for instance, this one here is an image. If I were to choose to edit it, initially it would say edit with what, but once I've chosen something to edit it with, it will remember that, so I can then choose to edit it again with the same application or a different one. And then as soon as I make a change in that other file and save it, it'll update here automatically. Very cool. The same thing with any videos or with audio, etc. If I select an external application for those, I can. But of course, in Captivate, you also have the ability to edit directly in here for a lot of the more common needs that you have with audio, video, etc. So if I go to my audio management, what the heck is that? Well, that's going to show me all the audio in my file, and if I click on here, it'll even show me object level audio, meaning audio that's attached to objects as well. And each of these then is going to show me exactly the information I need to export, to update these, to edit them, etc. So if I choose one, for instance this one here, to edit, and this I can open up anytime just by double clicking on the audio bar in my timeline. When I have the standard audio editing options here, so I can insert silence, I can cut, paste, copy, I can also lower the volume in different portions of this or raise it. I can do a number of things here, but it's not a full-fledged audio editor, but it does a lot of the work for me. Over here, I can choose between having system audio and narration audio. So if I wanted to, I could record from the system itself, and I can also add my closed captioning here as well. So in this case, I have this closed captioning showing right here, and in this case, it's only one closed caption for the slide. But I could separate this so that every time there's I want to change the the caption on the screen, I click this, enter the new closed caption, and again I can go to the slide notes and grab information from there as well that may already have been entered earlier, so I don't have to repeat that as well. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, what else? Round tripping, Photoshop, while, actions. Okay, let's talk about question and question pools, because these are also not something that is well understood. But just like with the library earlier, if I were to go to if I were to go to quiz and choose then to import question pools, I can import individual questions or question pools from a different Captivate file. So if I come over here now and choose any other Captivate file, such as this one here that I already have a quiz in, and it's going to now just show me that portion that is in that file. Okay, so now we see that the 3 pools in there and all the questions are listed for me. I have an easy, medium, and hard pool in the other file. This is not part of my current file yet. This is just opening up the questions and question pools from the others. And I can click and choose which ones I want from here. I can, of course, uncheck those ones I don't want. But in each case, I can choose also whole pools and then be able to click OK, and they will become part of the question pools. in my file, it'll have a new one called Easy at that point. Very nice feature of Captivate is the ability to bring in pools from other files and also any individual questions that I may wish. Okay, that's a cool thing too. You don't have to recreate them in any place else. You can just do it that way. Another nice feature regarding quizzing is the ability to create quiz questions. Let me go ahead and just delete these two slides. I don't need them anymore. But to create quiz questions that are in the gift format file. Now the gift format file, let me show you what I'm talking about here, is a simple text file that looks something like this. Now you might wonder, well, what, did Captivate make this up? No, it's actually an industry standard primarily used by Moodle developers, but also elsewhere, obviously, because Captivate uses it too. If you wish to, you can already get these kinds of files if you're using Moodle or other systems that use it as well. And in fact, if you wanted to create your own, it's pretty easy because there is a guide that will give you exact information about how to set up these kinds of questions as well. And that's called a gift reference, and this is it right here. And it breaks down for you how each question type works. You can have essay questions, numerical matching, etc. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you how this works. All I have to do then at this point is to come up to the quiz option and say I want to import a gift format file. Again, not something that that Captivate made up. It's actually something that is an industry standard now. And when I do that, it will then create the question slides for me. I may have to do a little bit of formatting afterwards, but they will take on the master slide format in each case. And there you go. You can see now that all my quiz questions have been created for me. If I go to the master slides, I can format them all at once as well. Nice, nice, nice to be able to do that. All right, what is next? There's so much going on here. Okay, let me jump back to here and talk about the Object Style Manager, because as I mentioned earlier, in Storyline we have the Format Painter tool there, and in a similar way, if I come over and change something, for instance, if I take some text or an image or whatever, and I make a change here, I can then, after I made that change, come over here and say that I want to apply that to the styles. And so here, for instance, I see that I have the ability to reset my style, and these will turn on if I make any changes. I want to create a new style or save changes to existing style or apply the style to certain types of other things, etc. Really, really easy to do that. So you can always have your styles set up and create new ones on the fly. Now, there's the Object Style Manager over here, and that will, in fact, give you a list of everything. So all your captions, your button types, your text entry boxes, etc., etc. So, highlight boxes, rollovers, quizzing objects as well. If I come over and say, the correct caption here is going to look like this, well, what if I want it to look different? If I make that change here and save it to the current style, it will change everywhere in my file to match that. If I create a new style from it, then obviously I can apply it to whatever ones I want. So very, very convenient, because you can see here that it gives you all of the options that you need to make the kinds of changes that you want to be able to make on the fly. So really nice features here too. Okay, close that. And by the way, yes, you can import and export these as well. You can export them all and import only the ones that you need when you import a file. You can say I want those that change only the selected style, or all styles of the selected object, or all styles of all objects. Nice feature there. Speaking of things you can change, preferences here, for instance, are very, very, very full in Captivate. There's so much going on here. So you have the ability to snap to guides and so on, as you do in Storyline. You can do also things like auto-size captions and buttons and so on, which sometimes I want to turn off and sometimes I want to turn on, because I may want my captions to all look about the same size, even though the text inside of them may change. But on the other hand, if I don't want that, I just want it to auto-size, I can turn this on, and that's that. Up here you'll see you even have the option of saying, for instance, I want to preview the next 1 slide, 2 slides, 3 slides, 24 slides, whatever. If I change this to a 2 here, it's actually going to change my drop-down menu that you'll see here in a moment. And then all of the other options that are available to me are listed here, and there's a lot of different areas that I can change. A lot of different areas I can change. So as I said, now if I come over to the preview, this wasn't, oh, I didn't save that. Next 5 slides, let me go back and change that again and save it this time. If I change that again, that default option to preview the next 2 slides and click OK this time instead of cancel, then when I drop this down, it's going to say the next 2 slides. Very cool. Okay. The ability to preview in the SCORM cloud is very, very nice as well, because that allows me to test this in the SCORM cloud without any problems at all. It will automatically load it up for me and show it to me and give me results from it, and etc. And then will automatically delete it afterwards, and so you have nothing to worry about. And unless you want to do it yourself, you can, and then you don't have to delete it automatically. But in Captivate, it will give you this one-click option to test your file in the SCORM cloud. Very nice feature there too. Okay, what are some of the other things that you can do that are management types of tools? We looked at, for instance, earlier we looked at the audio management and speech management, and we also now saw the preferences in the Object Style Manager, but you also have other options here as well. So for instance, if I want to, I can come to Project and choose to look at Advanced Interaction. Now, Advanced Interaction will give me a list of every interaction in my file, allow me to locate it but just by clicking on it. And as you can see, when I do that, it's jumping to the proper slide over here. I'll shrink this down a little bit so you can see it better. But each time I click, I can go and look at that interaction, because it takes me directly to that slide. And it shows me all of these options here, and I can filter these, and I can do a number I have a number of other options here as well. Okay, in addition to that, there's the HTML5 tracker. Now, this is not a mobile file. This is not meant for mobile. So one of the options here is, if I decide, well, maybe I should make this a mobile version of this, the HTML5 tracker will give me a list of everything that is not going to work on mobile, because I have rollovers, or as they're called in Storyline, they're hovers. I can do that, and I can also see that there's some Flash widgets and things in here that will not work, and that's something that now that I know that, I can go directly to any one of these just by clicking on it and change that on the fly there. So I clicked on that one, it's going to take me directly to that slide, and so on. So whatever I click, it's going to take me to that slide, and I'll be able to make the change I need so that it will also work on mobile. Getting close now, getting close. Let's see. As I mentioned with the Object Style Manager and the preferences, you can also export and import those. The effects and motion paths, I believe, are a little easier to work with in Captivate, and I'll show you why. Let me go out to the film strip here, and I'll just create a new slide here. If I wanted to make, for instance, an effect or a motion path on this, let me extend this time out a little bit so it'll be easier to see what's going on. When I go to create a shape, for instance, a star or an image or a video or anything I want to change, the theme for this is black. I don't know why it chose this one, because it's kind of dumb. But it's one of those areas where the effects allow you to do a lot more than just create an effect, because let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm going to say that this smart shape here is going to stay up for this long. And yeah, I just want to change that color there to something different. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm going to add an effect to that. Now, the nice thing about that is effects can be added in the timing options, because they're actually going to appear on my timeline. So as soon as I do this, of course, I can see them. And if I decide I want to, for instance, skew it, then I have options down here for how much I want to skew it and how long it should take. And now over here in my timeline, I can actually see this right here. It's at the very beginning, it's going to skew it over a 1 second time period. But if I want, I can just move this and say, no, I'm going to have it start at 1.5 seconds and skew for 1 second, or even extend this out directly to say it's going to go for 1.5 seconds, and it changes here as well. Okay, so everything I do in a timeline will change it here, and that's a really cool thing. Now let's say that at this point I decide that besides skewing it, I also want to add another one, and this one is going to be a motion path one. So I have my different options here for motion paths, right? Not too dissimilar from the ones that are in a storyline, except for the custom lines one here, which allow me to actually create segmented lines like this. I don't know if this is possible in storyline. I couldn't figure out a way to do this, so I might be wrong. But then be able to have the star, which I probably want to start it, right there, but have the star also be moving along this, and that I can also time where I want, so it can overlap here, for instance, so that as it starts to skew, just after that it's going to start to move, and I can move this out as well. So when I do that, now I can test them both and see what they look like just by moving this to the start of my timeline and then playing it, and I'll be able to see that it's skewing and moving. Of course, in the published version, I will not see the lines here, but that's just showing me how things are working there. I can then customize this further in any direction I wish, and in each case here, I can create as many of these points as I want when I set up my lines. Okay, so all this to say now, if I want to say, well, this is a really common effect where I skew and move it along this path, then I can save this to a new file name, and when I do that, call it Joe. You see these are just XML files, and that way, yeah, I don't want to put it there. I want to put it on the desktop. Let's put it there. Okay, Joe, and that way, when I come over here, the first time I do this, the first time I decide I want to add, let's go to a different slide now and bring in an image this time. Let's go back to here and choose something here. Okay, let's see, family, and get this picture of my kid when he was little. Okay, so if I decide I want to add the same effect to this one, well, all I got to do now is when I come over to here and say I want to add an effect to this, well, I can now choose to drop this down and bring in that effect from the outside. The first time I do this, it's going to ask me to find it, but thereafter, and you can see now it's going to be both the skew and this in there, and if I drop this open, you can see them both in there exactly the way it was. By the way, prorated, timed to the current timing of this, but also now the next time I decide I want to do one of these, so if I bring in again a different shape this time, when I want to add it to this, I can go ahead and choose it from this list, custom, and there's my Joe one right there. So really cool, because it will allow me to save any combination of effects that I wish to my own file name. Okay, let's switch subjects and talk instead about gradients, because gradients are actually a little bit cooler in Captivate, I believe, than in Storyline, because first of all, when you create a gradient and image fill, and image fills are also a little bit cooler. Gradient fills, when I choose here, I see these color stops, and this is a little more intuitive to me because you don't have to look at these individually. I can actually set up, click inside of here and choose, for instance, I want to go from that creamsicle color, I guess, to maybe a green color. And I can actually click right here and add more color stops, up to 15 in fact, color stops. So now I'm creating, maybe a rainbow type one, but in reality, what I can now do is to mix these really easily by moving these back and forth. If I decide I don't want one, I just pull it away and it's gone. But when I'm doing this now, I can see that it's allowing me to create these different color stops and apply a different color to each one. I can then change it to radial or linear. I can flip the colors. I can save this custom gradient so that it'll be available to me next time in any other file that I may have open. and I can change the direction of them, etc. Okay, so there's my gradient. That's kind of nice. One of the cool things is that once I've done that, I can come over here and choose to edit the gradient. That gives me a line that I can actually change the concentration visibly here by moving this around and making it so that I can decide if I want it to be a little bit different. And in addition, if I take the line at the other end of the line, I can actually move the whole thing up and down like this as well. So really cool feature that's often overlooked, by the way. So gradients are nice because you can save them, you can manipulate them further, etc. Now, let's talk about images instead, because images are also a little bit cooler in Captivate. If I bring in an image of some kind, let's say that I want to bring in, let's do the lion here. Okay. Now this is kind of a big one, so that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in, but I want to show you that by default it's tiling those. So if I make my star bigger, I will see all of the different tiles of showing me the line there. On the other hand, if I were to come over here and choose to not tile it, it's going to stretch the image. Okay, you see it's stretching it instead, which is the default in Storyline, by the way, and I think the only option maybe, but I might be wrong. And then if I choose not to stretch it, it will just show me to me in the center here. So really cool that I can have all of these different options here as well. Let's see, are we getting close yet? I think I'm just about done. The only other thing to mention, I think, is that the price is $29.99 a month with a year contract, so that's a cool thing. I'm looking over my list now, and I think I have covered just about everything. And if I forgot anything, well, forgive me. But that, I wanted to make sure that you saw that in action so that you can kind of see exactly what I mean when I talk about the power of Captivate. I believe that by now you should be able to tell about how much richer and deeper many of the options in Captivate are. As I said, I do like Storyline. I use Storyline, and it's a great product. But if I really want the full power that I need sometimes, then I'm going to use Captivate instead, because it gives me a lot more in the way of options as well. And I haven't even started to go down this list and show you all of the other elements that are available here, because there's just so much to talk about. Okay, I'll leave it there, and if you have questions, just ask. Thanks.